Hello everyone, welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis, which is brought to you by LawSeco. So let's see that what all articles we will be discussing today. First, playing catch up in flood forecasting technology, which is from the Hindu. So basically, this article talks about the advancements that we need to make in the flood forecasting technology and what are the issues that we are currently facing in this field. Secondly, call social media to account. This is from the Indian Express and it talks about a very, very important topic which talks about the sex bullying or the sex rackets, or in a way, the various kinds of extortions that go on in the side of social media. So, what are the implications of that, and what is the current scenario in this situation? We'll be knowing. Thirdly, making artificial intelligence work for India. So, as the name itself is suggesting, that what all avenues does India have in the field of artificial intelligence, and currently what situation we are in this area, we'll be studying in this article. And fourthly, we have the news and flash column, wherein we'll be discussing the small and crisp news points specifically for a prelims exam. Before that, let's endorse to you the law SICO courses that we have. So we have the lot of the courses, which is the judiciary test prep course. So if you're also preparing for judicial services exam, you may definitely have a look at it. The link to this course is available in the description box below. Also, from there, you can download free study material for yourself if you're also preparing for the same exam. Now let's see that what is the multiple choice question for the day. What is the motto of Indian Air Force? First, touch the sky with glory. Second, service before self. Third, fly, fight, win. Or fourth, none of the above. If you know the answer to this question, do jot it down in the comment section below. Now, this is the descriptive question for the day. Why is sexual violence against women a recurring and pervasive societal reality in India? Highlight the reasons behind the failure of digital companies and government to curb the circulation of online videos of sexual violence against women. So it's a very good question. There is a very high chance of this question being to come in the exam, and the answer to this question must be written within a word limit of 250 to maximum 300 words. With this, let's start with the discussion of the first article for the day, which talks about the flood forecasting technology. So the flood forecasting technologies have gained considerable importance in many flood-prone states in India, such as Assam, Bihar, Karnataka, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu. So as we know that in most of these states, and very recently, if we talk about it, in Assam, we had very severe floods that took place, and that actually destroyed a lot of areas in Assam. And other states like Bihar, Kerala, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu, they have floods that recur. That means that they come every now and then, and that is why it is really important for these areas to have a good flood forecasting technologies. Flood forecasting technology, as the name itself is suggesting, we mean that such techniques and such systems that actually help in this the authorities, be it the disaster management authorities or the administration or other stakeholders, to be informed about the upcoming flood beforehand, so that the correct actions and the mitigation steps can be taken well in time. Now let's understand that what are the different systems to forecast the floods in available. So do we have available? So first is the deterministic forecast, which is short time to act. It actually gives very short time to act, and this basically is known as the lead time. So the difference of time, or the time occurrence between the signal when we get that the flood is going to occur and the flood actually occurring in that particular area is very less. So it actually has just rising or falling type of forecast per model run, which means it just is able to tell that the sea level or the water level in that particular body is rising or falling, and no such specific information is available through the system. And actually India has shifted to this system. This is really very surprising to the fact that many countries that are actually leaving this deterministic forecast system, and they're moving towards a more advanced system, which is actually the ensemble forecast. But India, instead of moving to this more advanced version, we have actually switched to deterministic forecast very recently. And the second system which is available is the ensemble forecast system, which provides a lead of at least 7 to 10 days, which is a very significant lead. But here, approximately a lead, many times it is just for 24 hours. So that is really, really very less. And in this case, but in the case of ensemble forecast, a lead time of approximately 7 to 10 days is available with probabilities assigned to different scenarios. And it helps the local administrations with better decision making and being better prepared. And United States, European Union, and Japan have already shifted to this system. Now let's understand that what are the problems with Indian flood forecasting technology, that is with the deterministic forecast. Firstly, there are multiple agencies that are associated with the channelizing of this entire system, due to which delay is something that comes really as a unwanted gift with it. Let's see how. So the India Meteorological Department, or the IMD, issues the meteorological or weather forecasts. So the first step that is taken care of is by the India Meteorological Department, that actually issues the meteorological or weather forecasts. Then the Central Water Commission issues flood forecasts. So basically, we do not have a common body that would actually bring in the both of the informations at the one time only. But on the contrary, the IMD tells about the weather forecast, and dependent on that weather forecast, next step is that the Central Water Commission issues the flood forecast. And then the end users, that is the disaster management authorities and local administrations, are then informed. And due to this, the lead time, as we just discussed, the time between the forecast and the flood actually occurring reduces to very less of time, and this can be extended up to 3 days with the help of Doppler weather radars, which we currently are not using that extensively. And but technologies across several river points are based on outdated statistical methods that give lead time of less than 24 hours, and the methods fail to capture the hydrological response of river basins, due to which delay is something, as we just I just said, that it is something like an unwanted gift, even if you would not want to cause a delay. But this complex system of coming to a conclusion, or reading the forecast, it is so complex and so cumbersome in nature that delay is something that happens. Then the second thing, that the second issue is lack of uniformity. The Central Water Commission's technological gap it actually limits the India Meteorological Department's technological advancement, and vice versa. So as we know that the advancement, the technologies that we are using are also not very latest, and the hydrological systems are also very outdated, due to which uniformity is not carried out in the coordination. And then India needs around 80 to 100 S-band dense radar network for accurate quantitative precipitation forecast, which we should definitely invest into. And thirdly, we are yet to shift towards the ensemble technology. So beyond a lead time of 3 days, the deterministic forecast becomes less accurate as well. And the India Meteorological Department has started testing and using the ensemble through its 6.8 supercomputers, that are Pratyush and Mihir. So definitely we should get into this account, and we should work more into the direction of bringing in the ensemble technology, keeping in mind the recurring floods that we have in several states of India. With this, let's discuss the second article for the day, which talks about sex crimes in digital space. Now, many a times, this is something maybe I don't really need to even introduce you that what actually do we mean by the sex crimes in the digital space. This is really something that has come with an unfortunate attachment with the growing online space or the digital space, that sex crimes and sex bullying against the women, especially the women, it's not like being something that is limited to women, but specifically in the case of women, it is really, really raised a lot. And this is something which is a big concern for all the people who are attached to the digital space, to ensure that such sex crimes are actually deterred as soon as possible. So now a public interest litigation has been filed in the Supreme Court to establish an efficient mechanism to remove sexually graphic abusive content and seek accountability from social media platforms. Now, as we know that obviously, if we see it from a legal angle, it is not possible for the authority to keep an eye on everything that is happening. But then again, this is something that should not be overlooked at all, because these instances of sexual abuse as well as the sexually graphic abusive content is actually increasing a lot as and when the digital space and the accessibility to the digital space is increasing. And that is why this PIL has been filed in the Supreme Court to establish an efficient mechanism to put down this kind of content which is floating on the internet. Now let's see that what is the sex crimes, what are the sex crimes in the digital space. First and the most common that we have is of the revenge porn. Now, as we know that pornography, we all know about it, wherein the sexually unacceptable content, which is it is very it can also turn abusive in nature, and many times it is very indecent in nature. It is actually put up on the internet, and when these kinds of activities or these kinds of videos, MMS photos, or any of such content is put so that to in order to take revenge from your partner, ex-partner, or maybe any person who who you wish to take a revenge from or something like that, that constitutes to be a revenge porn. Now, this is basically an invasion of sexual privacy and form of online harassment where the perpetrator, as in the person who actually brings in this type of content on the internet, the person who actually is assaulting or is actually abusing the other person, usually a disgruntled ex-partner. So this has also, it has been told through various surveys that in most of the cases, it were the ex-partners of the people who actually ended up putting up such revenge porns on the internet. They post intimate photos, often to shame the subject. So here there are some relevant sections of the Indian Penal Code, section 1509, 499 for the defamation thing, 292 and 354C, that actually work in this regard. But the author in this article says that we should be more staunch and stronger in the application of these provisions, and also we should consider this as to be a very, very serious crime, because many a times the effects of these sex crimes is very severe, like honor killings. Like obviously many a times when families, they get to know about this thing, that their child was indulged into something, and maybe his or her photographs or pictures or videos are there on the internet, many a times due to societal pressure or maybe their own kind of thinking, they're not really able to understand and accept this fact, and due to which they end up into the honor killings of their own children. Then breakdown of relationships, which is probably the first thing that happens when this thing is revealed. Thirdly, destruction of reputation and career, because obviously when if we talk about a society like India, that is, I would still call it a conservative one, because even today we tend to further victimize the victim, because we consider that something, if is indecent, or it is like a pornography thing or something, it is floating, so the person who actually was the victim of this is the one to be blamed for, and we actually tend doing that. There have been many instances that the MMS and such videos of many film stars and maybe other people, they actually were floating on the internet, and people actually, instead of ignoring such facts, ignoring as in we should not really heat up these facts or these instances even further, and instead of doing that, we as viewers also take advantage of this and we start criticizing that person. So this is something, further victimization of the victim, and that should not be doing, we should not be doing on. And this actually causes the destruction of reputation and career, and many a times it compels the people to commit suicide as well, due to the fear of facing the society after this all has happened, and obviously immense emotional trauma also occurs. Now here, victims of the revenge porn are given like 90% of them are the women, and the 93% said that they have suffered significant emotional distress due to being a victim of this revenge porn, and 49% of them said that they have been harassed or stalked online by users who saw their material. Now, if I talk about all the viewers as well who are watching this news analysis currently as well, so maybe I would still not limit this thing to women, but specifically if we talk about the society that we are into, unfortunately, all the girls who are viewing this news analysis today, you might be able to relate yourself with this thing, even I can. So this is something that we all should stand up against, and even the boys, they also many a times have been facing these kinds of incidences, when not only other men, other boys, but also girls tend to harass them in such manners. So this is something that we, being responsible citizens, should stand up against, and this is really something that the law also should take very seriously. So here, what are the problems while prosecuting a perpetrator? Let's see that firstly, the wrong cannot be undone. Now, this is something that is not really impossible to do, but keeping in mind the vastness of the content that is available on the internet in the search of in the field of revenge porn, it becomes really practically very difficult for the authorities to put down the pictures or the photos or such videos that are available on the internet. And that is why it is said that it can be said that the harm that has been caused cannot really be undone, as these pictures and videos are very difficult to be brought down from the internet. And then reporting of such content to social media platforms are no avail. Like the Facebook receives around 0.5 million reports of revenge porn per month, but hardly any action is taken against them. And it is not this probably, like, social media platforms are not the right place to complain about this. If something like this is happening, in the very first place, it is our responsibility to tell the people who are associated into our life, to, like maybe our parents, the police authority, or any other person who can really help us in genuine like belief. So this also, like, taking this good opportunity, I would like to tell all the viewers that if in case you think that something like this is happening to you, somebody is blackmailing you with such things or something, and even if you know that any person or any other friend of yours is into this situation, please, as a responsible citizen, this is the only and only safe way out of this. Complain about it, and complain about it to a person, to an authority that actually is in the capacity to help you. Like, being anonymous and writing about it on the social media or something, that can maybe help you out versus this particular incident, but it will not actually, help you in reality. So if you really think you're facing such problem, you should go up to the authorities, complain about that particular person, because if he can blackmail you once, so obviously if you consider his blackmailing things, or you consider giving him whatever he's asking for, he'll definitely have a tendency to do it again and again. So please, as responsible citizens, I would definitely, that is the reason why I'm spending this much time on this particular article, is because it is really important to make all the people, and especially the youth that is watching this news analysis, to make you all aware about this. And definitely the law will help us, but it is our responsibility in the first place to let the authorities know about what we are going through, right? So that is why, let's see that what are the other steps that can be taken in this regard. The act should be moved to the category of serious offenses, definitely, and it should be considered to be as a continued sexual violation. Then more accountability and responsiveness from the social media giants should be there, like from the side of law enforcement and investigation. Ensure time-bound removal of social media content that is declared to be as illegal, and it should never be allowed to float recklessly on the internet, and it should be put down as soon as possible. And we should introduce fines and imprisonment for non-compliance in the cases of extreme cases of requests by law enforcement agencies. So let's discuss the next article for the day, which talks about the artificial intelligence in India. So the RAISE, that is Responsible Artificial Intelligence for Social Empowerment 2020 Summit, has brought issues around the AI to the center of policy discussions. Now, this topic is really important because very recently in our UPSC civil services exam prelims also, a question has come from the artificial intelligence, and otherwise as well. It's really important in the current scenario to understand about it. So AI digital economy is estimated to contribute around $15.7 trillion globally by 2030. So this is an area of science that has a huge scope, not only in terms of other technological advancements, but also in the economical growth as well. So let's see that what actually do we mean by the artificial intelligence. So it is a branch of computer science and is concerned with developing machines that can complete tasks that typically require human intelligence. But since they have the tendency of developing the artificial intelligence, so they can take up those tasks very easily. Then if we talk about the artificial intelligence in India, India has launched the Artificial Intelligence for All strategy. And let's know more about the India's capability in the field of artificial intelligence. So India has a vast pool of AI trained workforce and emerging startups, and it has been ranked second in the Stanford AI, that is Artificial Intelligence Vibrancy Index, which is a very good ranking if we talk about it. And then various IITs, IIITs, and NITs are working in this field as well. Then we are also capable of being a major contributor to the AI-driven solutions that can revolutionize the healthcare, agriculture, manufacturing, education, and skilling. Now, here some examples of the current uses that we are making through the AI have been given, like to detect the diabetic retinopathy and help address the challenge of shortage of eye doctors, like in various hospitals in Tamil Nadu. Then, even in the field of COVID-19, an artificial intelligence chatbot was used by MyGov, which is a very important area. And also, if you remember, we had talked about a small robotic thing also that had been developed called as Spot, which actually could measure the temperature and other whereabouts of the patients of the COVID-19 thing. And according to in the Indian Council of Medical Research, Watson Assistant to respond to queries by frontline staff. So this Watson Assistant is also based on AI, and in the field of pharmaceutical as well. It helped the pharma companies to shorten the preclinical drug identification time and design the process. It also helped to identify possible pharmaceutical therapies to help combat COVID-19. Now, here these applications should be kept in mind because there is a chance that a question in mains or even in the essay might arise in the case of asking about the artificial intelligence. So, the current uses that at least India is making of this artificial intelligence should be known to us. And then also, it is used in water management, crop insurance, pest control, etc. And that is why it is very important. Then, like AI-based voice products, we have them. For example, you must have seen, like in our phones, if we talk about the iPhones, then we have Siri, in other like Alexa and everything. So these are all based on artificial intelligence itself. So these are something that that it's making our life quite easy. And if we talk about the voice products, so it can make information more accessible to farmers because they only can simply, they can speak and ask their query, and they will have their, answers if they have any questions. And then there have been pilot projects in 3 districts: Bhopal, Rajkot, and Kanded, and there it has been quite successful to the farmers. Then also in the field of flood forecasting technology that we just discussed in today's article as well. So it was implemented in Bihar and it is now expanded to the whole of India. So it aimed to cover 200 million people across 2.5 lakh square kilometers. And then integrated in school curriculum. So Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has launched Responsible AI for Youth, which has actually been helping a lot in the school education as well. Now, this is the way forward in the field of AI. For the long term, if we say, AI can help add up to $957 billion to the Indian economy by 2035. And for the short term, AI and data can add over $500 billion and around 20 million jobs by 2025. So let's see that what do we have for news in flash today. Nobel Prize for Chemistry, Emmanuel Charpentier, Jennifer Doudna, will share the prize for chemistry for their contribution to the CRISPR-Cas9. So this is a very important, as you know, that CRISPR-Cas9 is the molecular scissor that has been used in gene editing and DNA editing. So this which allows the scientists to cut paste inside a genetic sequence. So genetic editing is not new, but the CRISPR, it has become very easy, simple, and efficient. So this actually is like just a scissors, like not actually like a physical scissors that you have. So this is like a molecular scissor that actually can cut down the DNA or the gene that is causing any kind of disease, and another one, a fresh gene, can be attached to that place. So that is why this CRISPR-Cas9 has made it really easy in today's time. Secondly, Indian Air Force Day today. So October 8th is celebrated as the Indian Air Force Day to commemorate the occasion when the Indian Air Force was officially raised in 1932 as the supporting force of the Royal Air Force of the United Kingdom. So the Indian Air Force is currently the 4th largest air force in the world, and there were only 6 officers and 19 Hawaii sepoys in 1933. Also, one fact that we should know that in the Indian forces that we have, in all the 3 forces, it is the Indian Air Force that has the highest number of women employees, as in the women officers over there, approximately to 14%. So India, Japan have to finalize the text of Pact for AI 5G. The agreement promotes cooperation in capacity building, research, development, security, resilience in areas of critical information infrastructure, 5G, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, among others. By Internet of Things, if it sounds new to you, this is simply a concept wherein things like physical things can also be accessed through internet. Like for example, we can switch on our AC, geyser, television, etc. from our mobile phones directly. We can ask our TVs sets to record something. So this is something wherein internet helps us to control things, physical things. So this is called as the Internet of Things. Fourthly, the cost of political posturing. So here, the US president has recently announced a hike in the salaries of those arriving in the US on H-1B visas. As know that till December, at least the suspension, the H-1B visas have been suspended. These are basically the work visas that are given to the skilled laborers who come from the outside country. And India, as a country, holds approximately 70% of these H-1B visas in US. So the implications of this step would be that it will be expected to cut around 33% of the total visa applications, and effect on US imports of services from India estimated to be at $29.6 billion in 2018. So yes, this was all for today. We hope it was a good session for you. Thank you so much.